It's a little bit of everything.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We got San Diego in the house.
All right.
You got Long Beach in the house.
Tasha.
You got Santa Barbara in the house.
That's awesome.
You got Beverly Hills.
How about Pacific Palisades?
Oh, yeah. Where is that?
Where is that? Yeah.
You wouldn't know. It's at the beach.
Oh, okay.
Awesome.
I like those suburban little communities in LA.
They are awesome.
Wonderful.
My brother lives in Manhattan Beach, as I've mentioned to you guys before, and man, that is the coolest place. I love it down there.
Yeah, it's great. Hey, Valencia. Thanks for joining us. Tasha Corrigan's in the house. Hey, Tasha.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Everybody's been doing well?
Everybody's doing great.
Good.
Hey,
I'm
Tasha.
excited for the call. Hey, Dean.
How you doing?
Hey, Lee. Can't wait to hear from you.
Hi, Lee.
Who's that?
Good morning.
Hi, honey.
Hey, Julie.
Tony Otto, is that your son?
Troy Otto is my son.
Hi,
He
Troy.
is a new agent in Seattle. He's a new agent in Seattle.
Good for Dad. I got to get Sequoia on these calls.
Right? And my mother saw us on the call as well from South Africa.
Oh, nice.
I'm in the world, man. You wanted an international audience, didn't you?
I love it. I love it. All right, we'll give it one more minute and we'll get it cranking.
Great.
Here we go. Let's put it in the mood.
Go, David.
Except now.
I love it.
Awesome. I love that song. We're very depressed over here in Hawaii to find out that Hawaii 5-0 was canceled. TV show.
All right. Dean, thank you so much for getting up early and joining us today.
Thanks for having me,
those
Dee.
of
I
you who
appreciate it.
don't know, it's 7 a.m. in Hawaii right now.
7 a.m. It's early, but we're early risers over here. So I'm up at 5:30.
Excellent.
Asleep at 9 o'clock at night, though. That's the only downside.
Yeah. Well, I'll try to avoid the late night calls for you. So Dean, let's get it started by just letting everybody know a little bit about your background. I know you grew up in South Africa. In high school, you played soccer at a pretty high level. After that, you were into the Army. You were a combat veteran of the Namibia and Angola War, which is pretty impressive for all of us. And then you went to the University of Oregon and then to Hawaii, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So a little bit of a magic carpet ride there. It's a pretty cool story, really. Very lucky to be here, I'd say that. And but you're right. I grew up. I was born and raised in South Africa till about age 19, 20. You know, it was mandatory in South Africa that when you graduated high school, within 1 week, I was on a train off to basic training in South Africa, obviously. And you know, we did some really intensive training. I mean, this is like the second to Israel, probably the best trained army in the world at that time. Very aggressive and very well trained, and went through just a really interesting experience of some serious training that, you know, I think had a real impact on my life. I mean, if you want to talk about discipline, man, I can't tell you how important that phase of my life was in preparing me for my future in life, never mind real estate. Just a really intensive time. You know, I spent 18 months on the border of Angola. You make it sound really sexy, but it wasn't really that great. I wasn't exactly this, you know, brave combat, you know, veteran. What I was very lucky. And I grew up in South Africa playing soccer, you're right, but I ended up doing quite well in rugby. Rugby was really my sport, and I grew up in a family of, you know, famous rugby players. My father was very good in rugby, and my uncle was very successful as well. So I was sort of destined to be a rugby player. And, rugby kept me out of the front lines of the army. So I was really lucky and didn't end up getting shot up too much. But, it is an interesting time. We were bombed on several occasions. I was 6 days in basic training at 18 years old, and our base was bombed, rocketed, with 6 rockets that were shot into our base. Of course, at that time, we're combating communism. It was in the 80s, and we were fighting the spread of communism from Russia to Cuba to Angola. And it was sort of the funnel into Africa, and we were sort of defending that in infiltration. But it's a really interesting time, pretty scary, lots of people dying, lots of crazy, it was a war, it was a crazy guerrilla war. And I saw a lot, it was really interesting, but it really did have an important role in shaping my life, as did growing up in South Africa and, just being in a very disciplined community. In high school, we wore blazers, tie, and bowler hats, and we stepped out of line, we got caned. And thinking we should bring that back, because the caning was a sure way to, snap people in line. And unfortunately, I wasn't a real sharp kid, so I ended up getting, my fair share of the canings. But man, I tell you, you get whipped into shape pretty quick over there, and it's a really great start and foundation for a business future.
Yeah, and it puts it in perspective when your clients want to verbally cane you. So it.
Yeah, right. I've been like, you know what? It doesn't even hurt. Sorry.
Right. Exactly.
And I've been. So I always tell people, like, they've been trying to get me for years. I mean, from 18, I've been bombed 5 times and shot at and all kinds of stuff. And real estate's a piece of cake. Sitting there in a war zone, getting shot at and bombed at and stuff, makes you think real hard. And I think. Man, I sure count my blessings every day that I'm a luxury real estate broker in Maui, coming from that place. And that was really the instigation of me wanting to venture out and see that there's more to life than the running around shooting people.
And we should all be very grateful for the opportunity to do what we do for a living.
Exactly right.
We're all very, very fortunate. So Dean, how old were you when you got into the business?
How old was that?
Yeah,
so
when you got into selling real estate.
Yeah, so from Africa, coming out of the army, venturing out into the world, I ended up going on vacation with a friend of mine. And we ended up traveling across a little bit in London, Wales, and wanted to get to America. And we traveled all the way across America to a cousin of mine who lived in Eugene, Oregon. And while I was there, visiting him on vacation, I ended up meeting a football coach completely randomly at a park one day, punting a rugby ball around with my friend, and the coach introduced himself, watched me kick for a while, invited me for a tryout, and I was enrolled. I tried out on Wednesday, I was enrolled in school on Friday, and I played on Saturday. And it was really a cool story because I'd never seen a football game in my life before. And I ended up, as I say, they sent me home from practice on Friday to watch a game so that I knew what was going on. But I ended up as a field goal kicker just doing the kickoffs that Saturday, and the rest was history. And they gave me a scholarship on Monday, and it was just this amazing, I called it my magic carpet ride from army to America to, getting a scholarship to meeting my wife in college and moving to Maui and going, damn, this is not bad. I like this fight.
So you basically played in a Division I football game before you'd ever seen a football game?
Correct. I didn't know any rules, to be honest with you. And they were like, it's not going to be a problem because you kick the ball so far, just kick it out of the end zone and you're going to be fine. So, of course, my first kickoff didn't go out and they returned it. And I almost got my head completely taken off by 2 of the biggest people you've ever seen in your life. And so I learned pretty quickly.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
And I played the first season, the entire season, and the last game of the season, the opposing team scored a safety, and I had no idea. I'd never heard of or seen a safety in my life before. I was turned to my punter. I'm like, what the hell just happened? So yeah, that's 2 points. But it was a really interesting story. At the time, South Africa was a very controversial place to be from. And at first, the first game, no one knew who I was because I wasn't in the program. I just arrived there. In the Monday morning article in the newspaper was like, mystery man shows up. Who is this guy? And then they wrote a story on me. This guy from South Africa showed up, and the university was not real happy. They were like, we don't want a white South African. And so my first few months were, people picketing at the university, wanting me to go home. They don't want me on the campus. And it was really quite an interesting experience, not only from the football perspective, but having to deal with the media having to deal with the questions, you know, and I think it was a really interesting period of time where I've hundreds of articles. Every away game that I played at, you know, the Friday before the game, like the story before the game was always about me. And I couldn't tell you how many interviews and questions about growing up in South Africa. It was just a fantastic experience. And so that's a long answer to your story of how I got into real estate. But I graduated from the University of Oregon, met my wife, and came back to Maui. And literally, that was my first job. I've never done anything else. I've only been a real estate agent since I graduated college. And I was really lucky that I started up with a really great company in Maui when I first started, having completely no idea what I was doing.
So
But
basically, you never had a real job.
I'd never had a real job before. I was just a traveling rugby player that had no idea what I was really doing. It's just fumbling around and, you know, my magic carpet ride, having a great time. And I loved it. It was just one of the greatest experiences of my life.
You still never had a real job.
I still, exactly. That's what I tell people, you know, for many years, I didn't want to tell anyone about how great real estate was because I didn't want them to come into the market and compete with me. You know, now as a part of Keller Williams, I spend half my time recruiting people into this great company. So it's been a change. Keller Williams has really changed my world and rocked my world. It's shown me a way that I had no idea was out there. You know, I was a very raw individual broker when I first started and I had no idea, no training, no help, no nothing. And I wish Keller Williams was around when I started. You know, and I tell people every day that, you know, what took me 20 years can now be done in 5 years if you plug into the system of Keller Williams. And that's the truth. So
Absolutely. How long ago was that? How long ago did you join the company?
So I actually, I joined Keller Williams 3 years ago. So this is my fourth year. So I'm relatively new at it. I was very skeptical in the beginning, to be honest. It didn't sound like me, you know, but I think ultimately it's really grown on me and it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to my career for sure. I'm a big fan of the luxury division because it's my place and my space to operate and the people are amazing. And it's my goals to form as large a network with you all as I can because I think that's going to be the future of real estate.
And I think it's a great lesson for all of us when we're talking to people that we think would never join the company. Dean is an example of somebody who's a huge luxury agent in Maui. I'm sure a lot of people said, there's no way that guy's going to join Keller Williams. And here you are. And so, you know, we have to stop these limiting beliefs that people won't come to the company.
That's absolutely true. You know, I was one of those people who was like, you know, the Kool-Aid was thick and I would never go to a conference. You know, that would be crazy. It's 20,000 people. I've been to every conference so far, all three every year. I love it. It's been amazing. I've met the most amazing people, and I go to every one. I think it's the greatest thing and the best, one of the best parts about this business. You know, I sort of came to the company thinking the splits were attractive and there was opportunity to make a lot of money, and I really like the idea of the networks as well, which has become a big part of my business. But I think ultimately I've settled on the fact that it's the culture that's really drawn me in, and I just love this sort of sharing and caring mentality and attitude that people have around. It's really amazing. I'm like a sponge. I talk to people every day and I pick up little tips and you guys are clearly people that I want to connect with and learn from. And as you know, Lee, it's my intention to form high level networks, international networks. And I think I'm hoping we can be a part of that together.
Well, you know, we're on the same page there.
Yeah.
So Dean, tell us a little bit about your business. What's about your average sales price? How many deals do you do a year? What's going on in your business?
Right. So I'm pretty consistent. You know, I represent about every year 50% buyers, 50% sellers. My typical year, a good year for me or decent year for me would be 20 sales at an average of about 3 million. And that's pretty consistent for me. I'm on that track right now. I'm stuck with that. I'm trying to do about 6 to 7 million a month. I've been really happy to be able to continue that through the quarantine time here, and I've been able to close about 12 million in escrow since I've been in quarantine. So, you know, quarantine and this whole coronavirus is, I think, been an opportunity for many of us. I hate to be insensitive about it because a lot of people are dying, but man, there's a lot of really interesting things coming out of this. And one of them is, you know, the ability to be able to reset and think about, do the big thinking that you can't normally do when you're on your crazy days, scrambling around trying to make your fortunes. It's the great opportunity to stop, take a deep breath, reset, look at what's important in our lives and in our business and move forward again. And this opportunity has been just an exceptional period of time for me. I've really enjoyed it, despite all the, as I say, I don't want to sound insensitive to what's going on, but, I can only control what I can control. And for me, it's about the reset and the fact that this coronavirus has really made a big impact on me, and I hope the rest of the world, in the sense that, there's this great realization going on that maybe we're doing this all wrong. And that, the environment, the planet has really been taken, we've been destroying our planets, we've been destroying ourselves, and we're super insensitive and impersonal with each other, and we've become robots, in my opinion. And I think that this opportunity to quarantine has really forced everyone to do the big thinking, to look at their lives, think about what the rest of their life looks like. And for a lot of people, that means, where am I going to live and what does that lifestyle look like? So in my experience through this coronavirus has been that people are doing the big thinking. They're really looking at, what does the rest of my life look like? They're not happy with where they're at, or staring at blank walls, unhappy with the limitations that come with it. But I think for a lot of people, at least in my opinion, are going to start moving out of the cities maybe. And I think there'll be a real run on second home markets, in my opinion, coming out of this coronavirus. Because I think there's a lot of people sitting in these cities, which are, if you're in New York or whatever, these guys are taking a beating right now. And I think they're sitting at home wondering, do I really need to be here? And what other options are out there? And could I be living in Florida if I was in New York, or Maui if I was in California, or even if you're in a big city, maybe moving to the suburbs. But I think there is going to be a lot of action on everyone's monopoly boards. And I think that that's coming. And I think that's exciting for me, because I'm in a second home market on Maui that was slumping coming into the coronavirus, and I believe we'll come out of it stronger. It's just my own personal opinion, I guess.
No, I think it's great for everybody to hear that, Dean. They hear that you're doing deals. I think that we all need to reinforce in each other that we can be doing business at this time. Absolutely. Right. Talk to us a little bit about what your money can buy for you in Maui. Like, what does it cost to get a condo on the beach? What's it cost to get a private home on the beach? Let's start with that.
Yeah, sure. So there's quite a range of oceanfront condos depending on where you are. But if you look at just my region, which is the West Maui region, which is Lahaina to Kapalua, an oceanfront condo, realistic right now is probably at least $1 million on the low end. I have listings right now, 1-bedroom oceanfront in Kapalua for $1,095,000, and I also have one in a much more exclusive complex that sets probably the bar on the high end of oceanfront condos for $5.3 million. That'd be like a 2,700 square foot 3-bedroom, relatively new, built post 2000 in Kapalua. So phenomenal properties. Those properties have been fairly stable. We were actually on an upward trend coming into the coronavirus, lagging those mainland markets, primarily the second home markets were lagging a little bit. And so we were on an upward trend up until now. And, I think I'm fanatical about staying on top of statistics, but the challenge we have with clients is if you look at March statistics, they're still very good. Our single family sales were up 8%, average sale price was up 6%, and volume was up 14% going into the end of March. So all of a sudden, April, it'll be interesting. We've realized about a 40% drop in escrows of single family and about 50% in condos. So April should be interesting. We'll see the transition in April, but May will be the real test. If you're selling real estate in May, then you're doing great, I think. Closing real estate in May, then you've done great.
Yeah, and we got to be opening new deals. And
you got to be, the concern is the pipeline, 2-3 months down the road. The people that I'm selling to right now were already in the business, that they already had considered Maui. Many of them had become now much more motivated to buy Maui with the coronavirus. So we saw a lot of people just jumping into the market that were on the fence. And we got a constant barrage of calls still up to this day from people from the mainland wanting to come over here and rent a home for 6 months. So what we know is the day that they shut down schools on the mainland through the summer and people were like free for 6 months, we just constantly got these barrage of calls of people wanting to come here and would would my owner of my listing rent for 6 months? And I get it every day. So we know the demand is really strong, and we know that people are thinking about Maui. So it's just a matter of now getting them over here. So there's a 1 or 2 month pipeline concern that I'd be a little concerned about, but we've been pretty positive about it. I think, I see it's continued. I think there's a little dip, but I think we'll come out of this stronger as a second home market.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of positive things that could come out of this, as you say, and a lot of it's just our mindset going
Right.
into this. Absolutely.
That's exactly right. The mindset is key. I think the interesting thing is the conversations that we're having with our clients. I find that really interesting. And we're not talking a lot of real estate all the time, but there's a natural tendency to go to the negative. The coronavirus, the one thing we know about that is it's never happened before. So we really don't know much about it. And really, it's almost ridiculous to be everyone trying to predict it. I think it's ridiculous. I think coronavirus is unpredictable. As individuals, we have no control over it. So therefore, coronavirus is neutral in my mind. And so if it's neutral, the tendency is always to go negative. And I was talking to people that were like, people are going to be riding in the streets in 6 months. And I would always, when they ask me how I'm doing, I'd always share my positive experiences and my business is going well. And the fact that we do have no control over coronavirus and we can predict it. So therefore, the alternative to people riding the streets is equally likely. It's equally possible. If it's not predictable, then either option is just as likely as the other. I choose to be the positive and to say that in 2-3 months' time, we're going to look back in this and go, man, that sucked. I wonder what next year's winter virus is going to be, next year's winter flu. And so my thing is, we're moving past it, and people we know still want to be here. I'm sharing my positive experiences, and in doing so, giving permission for people to play in this market. When they first talk to me, they're like, all hell's breaking loose. And by the end of the conversation, they're like, wow, that's interesting. That's the market's still chugging along and people are still buying. That's interesting. And maybe I should consider that too. And we've actually switched some people over to becoming buyers from thinking that there was going to be riding in the streets in 6 months' time. Just pointing out the fact that we shouldn't be so stressed out over about things we can't control, but we do have the ability to be able to coach our minds to think positively, because it's automatically going to want to go to the negative. And it's that mind thoughts and managing your thoughts that's so important. And if you don't have a coach, this is what your coach will be teaching you. And I have a phenomenal, incredible coach that's rocked my world, but she keeps me focused on the positive. I'm a very positive person. Most people consider me annoyingly positive. I'll never see the negative in everything. If there's opportunity in everything, adversity is a great opportunity for us to improve our game, our business. And I think right now, since, as I mentioned before, we're becoming robots, and everyone is competing for, volume and these big teams. And when I came to Keller Williams, I was like, God, that makes no sense to me, that they were so proud of the fact that the top broker would be, I only meet the client one time, and then after that, it goes to my team. I never talk to them again. To me, that was like the craziest thing you've ever heard. And I think what we're realizing now is, and it was starting to adjust as we came into this coronavirus, is that that's really not the game. That the game really is to be a much more personal, approachable, likable, friendly type of agent that people can connect with. We know for a fact now that there's so many cases now, I don't want to misquote it, I'm not going to quote, but there's so many cases where people use an agent and then choose another agent the next time they get into the business. It's a ridiculously high amount. And what we realized is, looking deeper into this, is that in 67% of those cases where someone uses an agent and doesn't use them the next time, it was because they never had a personal connection, or they never had an emotional connection with this person. It was just transactional. They did the job, blah, 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 close the deal, yeah, great. But there really wasn't a personal connection.
Or they never heard from them again.
They never heard from them. There was nothing really exciting about it. It wasn't sexy. They just didn't get fired up. And I think for me, in this 2 months of coronavirus quarantines and all, my plan is to really look hard at how do I improve my level of service. And I know that some of you guys are working with us on that with Brady Sandell, and really trying to elevate our service standards to something more in line with the Ritz-Carlton gold standard, and just elevate the standard of service that we do is going to be my primary focus, because I think we're becoming robots, and I think that's what people are calling for. They want to have connection. They want to, I look at it a little bit like escrow. we're becoming a little bit like escrow officers. Everyone has technology, everyone has the ability to market, everyone's doing the same thing, everyone's cold calling, we're all doing the same stuff. It's sort of like escrow, you know, all escrow agents can close a deal. There's not one that I haven't worked with that's not good at their job, but we choose the ones that we work with because of a personal connection or relationship with them. And I think to some degree, with Amazon and Redfin and all these guys taking over, the market's craving that personal attention again. And that's going to be the primary focus of my 30 to 60 days in quarantine, in addition to building high-level strategic networks with top agents like you and being able to leverage the networks. I think that's the future, in my mind, of real estate coming out of coronavirus.
Dean, I want to echo something that you said about us not knowing what the future is. So you're going to choose to take a positive look on it. And I think that's so true. If we're going to make up a story in our head, which is what we're doing really, when we look out to the future, if we're going to make up a story, we might as well make up a great one, right? I mean, it's like,
exactly.
why make up a lousy one? Either way, we're making up a story.
Yeah, it's the clients. You're right. It's the stressed out clients, you know, let them do the negativity. You know, I think that's their role. Our role as the agent. I mean, I always tell my agents that if you have nothing else, you know, the one thing you got to do is keep the emotion out of the transaction and make sure your client makes prudent business decisions. Keep the emotion out, you know, and not let your clients get emotional. So as they drift off into these worlds, you have to be able to reel them in. And for me, it's a natural thing. I'm very positive, but I've also been coached to identify, you know, when you start to get negative and you understand it and you can make the adjustment and you can manage your thoughts. It is possible. You know, your instinct is going to go drama and negative, but if you know that, you can absolutely manage your thoughts around it. And you have to do that with everything, I think. If you can't control it, it's neutral. So therefore, pick the positive side, you know.
Hey, Dean, so let's just circle back to the prices for a second. So condos, you can start condos in the low 1 millions in Maui if you want to be on the beach. How about if you want a private home on the beach?
Yep. So private homes in let's just take West Maui again. Man, they're probably starting at 8 million and they go up to 49 million, which is crazy. I have right now a 11.5, 15.5 and a $16.5 million house. And those are really beautiful, spectacular properties. The high end has been a little bit sluggish. We've definitely tightened up those prices a little bit. The 16.5, you know, this property's been on and off the market for several years. 2 years ago, that was 20 million. So much more competitive. The great news is I have an offer running on my 16.5 million right now. And I'm hoping that'll go through and blow out my coronavirus budget. That'd be awesome. But no, these people the people that I'm dealing with are more interested in being in Maui than they were before coronavirus. This is a guy who made an offer already in the property. He's waiting for to be able to get a flight over here. Texas just opened, and he'll be flying over here to take one more look at that property and buy it. You know, these guys could live anywhere in the world. These are mega big players, you know. And I think that those people who have been a little bit absent from the market are jumping into the market again now, the big money.
So I think it's obvious to all of us what's great about living in Maui. I've personally never been there, but I can imagine what's great about living there. Tell us what's challenging about living in Maui.
Lee, you need to get over here for sure. Maybe you can come with Steve next time he comes over.
I think my girlfriend Christina would second that.
Christina, you've been there before, so right?
I've been there several times and it's gorgeous.
Yeah, no, you guys need to come back. But, you know, that's a tough question. You know, there's not a lot of, you know, bad things about living in Maui. I'm having a hard time coming up with a negative. It's a great lifestyle. You know, people are really cool. You know, there's a mix of tourism in the area. So there's this really interesting combination. It's a very happy and vibrant, you know, area because there's half the people on vacation have lived there. And it's just a great place to live. And, you know, I would say that if there was one negative that I had to come up with today, it would be the fact that we are the most isolated place in the world. I mean, there's no other place that you would live the nearest landmass would be 6 hours flight away. And so probably if there's anything else, the limitation that I feel is the ability to just pop around and, you know, go to Europe, you know, or to California 6 hours. So of course, when I make these trips to go on these conventions to Austin and East Coast and stuff, it's a long day. It's like 2 days of flying because you can't connect them. But
Yeah, I
I
was
love
going to say,
living in
you
Maui.
used to
I don't
pop
think
around. We see you all over the place.
I know. I did a lot of traveling last year. It was awesome. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
Get
So
off the
speaking
island a little bit. So I think to me, most people ask all the time, do you get island fever living on an island? And my answer is generally, yeah, when I leave the island because I want to get back so bad. But it's a great place to live. It's a little bit isolated for some people, but you get used to it really quickly. It's really not a lot of negativity there.
So Dean, you've represented a lot of celebrities, a lot of the uber wealthy. What's different about representing a celebrity or a billionaire than just representing an average Joe like me?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, I'd like to say there's not a lot of difference. Ultimately, when you can break through the facade, the ego, people are generally all the same. And the people that are drawn to Maui and the lifestyle are, the people that are a little more pleasant and easier to deal with, maybe. Not so much ego, because you do run into ego a lot, right? I would say that ego
It's
is
not
a
a
big
problem
deal.
in Beverly Hills, but I can
Never
see
a problem there, I'm sure. I would say trust and patience are probably the two biggest qualities in dealing with a super high end. You have to have the patience. They're constantly watching to make sure that you're caring for their best interests and not your own. It feels like a little bit of a test, so you can break through that trust barrier. But I've enjoyed it. I've worked with Kelsey Grammer, who was just an absolute pleasure to deal with. I sold Carlos Santana's house. Just an amazing individual who I loved and enjoyed working with him. Mick Fleetwood, tough nut to crack, but a lot of drugs in the 70s, so not a lot of memory, but great guy, and I've really enjoyed my time with these guys. I just closed the escrow last week on a $4.2 million house for Mike Kruger, who's the guitarist for Nickelback. So I've had my fair share. It's been really fun, and these people are just down to earth, really beautiful people. And I think the one thing about high net worth people is they do math very well. They know exactly what 6% of anything is, and there's this constant, I feel like I'm constantly being monitored here because they know exactly what's going on, and they'll tell you, you're being well paid on this, so you need to step up, or whatever the case may be. But I guess the other thing I'd say about high net worth people is that I probably, the moment that I sort of broke into the inner circle of the luxury that super high net worth clientele in Maui was when I stepped up in a big way in a community service capacity. And I did this crazy thing 13 years ago. Me and a group of people started a school, and it's called Maui Prep. It's turned out to be a great success. So it's probably one of my greatest accomplishments, I would say, is starting the school in Maui. It's been 13 years. For 7 years, I was president of the board. I mean, that's like the majority of my time. I had to find time for real estate. I was a president of the board for 7 years. It's a startup school, crazy stuff. I'd never do that again if I thought that through. We started the school 13 years ago with 36 kids and $4 million in debt. So it was a massive fundraising effort. It's doing really well right now. I'm really proud of it. This is a big month for me, May, because I'm retiring from the board this month. I finally transitioned out of it. But I'm also will be making a $50,000 donation to the school, and that'll bring my total donations to the school to $500,000. And I thought that would be a nice way to exit out of my 13-year role in the school. It's awesome. I just had such a great experience. It's so rewarding.
Hold on, Dean. Can you guys mute? Somebody there is
One's drinking.
muted. Thanks. Go ahead,
So just
Dean.
a phenomenal experience, and very sort of a selfless thing that you do. And I think in order to get into the inner circle of the high net worth people, you almost have to play in that space to get the respect of that level and become more than just an agent, to become more of a friend. And that, I think, for me, there was a kind of a big turning point in that world of the high net worth people. They love the idea that I'm giving back, and they see the commitment. I mean, it's starting a school is crazy anyway. We started in 2005, and of course 2008, the financial meltdown. There's so many challenges that we worked through, and it was a complete community effort that the entire community pulled together on and has made this work. And I think that has really helped me to get to another level. And I can't say that there's a quantifiable number of deals that have come from my efforts in that, but it's just a certain amount of respect and appreciation for the fact that I'm not just someone that's asking, but I'm willing to give back as well.
Well, I think that's such a great message for all of us to hear, that you could do something that you feel passionate about, give back, and use that as a vehicle to expand your business. You know, I know Steve Epstein's here from Santa Barbara, has built his business. A lot of others have done it that way. And, you know, it's like a no lose. If you don't
Right.
generate the business, you're doing something you feel passionate about, you're helping your community. And if you build your business that way, it so much the better. So
It is. I think it's definitely in small communities, it really goes a long way.
yeah, absolutely. So Dean, what are the things you do regularly that help keep your business going, other than your charity work?
Yeah, you know, I'm changing all the time, you know, so I think there's an evolution, it's a journey. What I was doing before coronavirus is very different than what I'm doing now and will be doing in the future. So I think it's a constant, you know, knowing the data, anticipating the changes, being entrepreneurial and staying ahead of it. I've never stopped farming. So I've always been a religious farmer. I've targeted a community that I started with when I very first joined in real estate, and I've targeted and marketed and farmed that community for many, many, many years. So,
And what's the average price in that community?
that's a super high-end community. So the homes start at about 2.5 million, 249 million. So 2.5 million wouldn't get you a whole lot, but I would say the average prices are probably about 3 to 5 million. Just a spectacular resort community. It's one of the most beautiful places in the world, called Kapalua, for those of you who don't know it. Come visit me if you don't. But yeah, so I spend a lot of time farming. I do a lot of, you know, a lot of organic. I used to do a lot of marketing when I started. I did a lot of print ads, and I did everything that everyone was doing, and spent lots of money. You know, after you do the beauty of doing it for so long is that you can stop doing it and still reap the benefits from it. So a lot of what I'm doing right now is you're really working hard to get listings, farming, communicating, talking to a lot of people, and that being the driver of my business. So I'm a listing fanatic. You know, my first year with Keller Williams, and when I started discovering all these great tools and all this brand that I never had before, I was like a little individual on a corner of the most remote island in the world. And when I came into Keller Williams, I was like, oh my God, there's this whole world out there. And I was really motivated by that and jumped head first into it and leveraged everything I could about Keller Williams. And in my first year with Keller Williams, I went from 20 listings to 80 listings, which is crazy. You know, 80 listings as an individual agent with one assistant was a lot of hard work, and was part of that mad scramble to just grab as much business as we could, but really gave up a little bit of the personal side. And that's what I'm changing now, is that I'm not that interested in having 80 listings anymore, but I am interested in being better connected with the people that I do have. And I'm getting more referrals out of it. And it's just a stronger bond that will give you more referrals.
And how big is your team now?
I am still an individual agent with an assistant. I have a transaction coordinator.
Wow.
But ultimately,
okay, so I think this is an important message for so many people to hear. Now, not everybody's average price can be $3 million, but there's such an emphasis now on building teams. I see agents who haven't even done one deal talk about building their team. And it's like, guys, let's sell real estate. And it is absolutely possible to be hugely successful being a sole agent.
Well, I agree. I think, and there's been an interesting shift within Keller Williams as well. You know, I think that what they did was probably like a year ago, they started to look at, instead of volume, because everyone was just driving volume. There was 100 million, you know, now we're getting to $1 billion. It's just crazy. But what they were doing is just spending more money to get more volume and competing for volume and not really competing for net income. And when they looked at what the team members are netting versus the individual agents are netting, they realized that individual agents are generally making more money. So I'm not against teams. It's just not my style. And I think the higher you get into your price points in luxury, the less I think the team works. It's just my own opinion. And that people want to talk to me. I mean, you know, the whole idea that I can handshake and say hi and meet someone to get the listing and never talk to them again, that's the bizarrest thing I've ever heard. But I think that is the team concept. It works for a lot of people, and I think that's great. I don't knock it because I see the results, and there's some amazing people in Keller Williams that are doing amazing things with teams. And my world is luxury, it's individual. I'll stack up admin as much as I need, but I have to be the guy that's going to be doing the showings, talking to the clients and that. So I think a luxury model is different than your general brokerage model, which is just you can hand off your client to your staff. I think in luxury, you can build a team around admin, but really it becomes a little more difficult to replace myself, I guess is what I'm saying.
So Dean, what's the biggest mistake that you see new agents make?
I would have to say, because I'm having this conversation all the time, is that new agents just won't learn how to shut up. That is probably the best advice I could give a new agent. You got to learn how to shut up. You know what I mean? People, for whatever reason, have a hard time with silence in a conversation, and they just ramble on. And I love sitting there and just being silent and watching people ramble on and give you all the ammunition that you need to use against them. And I think as a rookie agent, the hardest part is just you don't need to ramble on if you don't have to.
Great advice.
I see it. And the emotion. My other one is emotion. You gotta, as an agent, you gotta be the person to keep it from becoming emotional.
And you know, Dean, you're somebody who really seems to know how to have fun with this business. In addition to working hard, you're certainly no stranger to hard work, and you're definitely no stranger to success. But you seem to also have a lot of fun with the business. At least you project that. What advice can you give us is like one thing that we can all do to make this business a little bit more fun?
That's a good question. I think, oh man, I'm all about having fun. If it's not good fun, I'm not going to do it. That's just my number one rule. Because it should be fun. There's just no reason. The real estate is an amazing job, really. I mean, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. This is so exciting for me. And I've been doing it for a long time. But I can't wait to get to work every day. I'm dealing with the most amazing people. So for me, it's you got to have fun. It's all about it. But I think if there was anything I could say, it would be probably being authentic is probably the most important thing. You know, I think if you try to act like someone else, or you try to, you know, impersonate some other person that's doing it, or try to create their or use their ideas, it just doesn't work as well. And I think being authentic allows you to be yourself, allows you to have fun. And I think your clients will be much more happier working with you as an authentic individual, just trying to live it, you know, enjoy your life rather than put on some specific professional personality for them. I don't think that works. So I think being authentic is probably the most important thing.
That's great advice. You know, Dean, it's just so amazing talking to you. And I think we all envy your lifestyle in Maui, no matter how much you're pushing it as the greatest place in the world to live. I think that it's got to be fantastic there. And let's open it up for questions.
It is amazing. It's an amazing place to be. And I think, you know, it's such a unique place and lifestyle. It's like when you come to Hawaii, what people tell me anyway, is that it feels like they're going to another country or another world, but yet it is part of our world still. And I think that's an important part is people like being in America. People want the escape, but they also want to be in America. And I think Maui and Hawaii offers that. Any questions I can answer?
So everybody, we've got, you know, one of the most successful agents in the country. Who's got a question for Dean?
I got one, Lee. And Dean, thanks so much for being on this. I can't tell you how many times Lee and I are talking about luxury market, and your name works its way into the conversation just about every time.
Thank you, David.
I've got a list of questions, but I'm not going to bother everyone with them all. How many houses or properties are in your farm, and what percentage of your business comes from that farm?
Good question. I have a farm of about 10,000. It's basically this West Maui area. There's a Kapalua resort, there's a Kanapali resort, and there's a big community in Lahaina, and I target those specific areas. And what percentage of my business comes from that? I mean, it feels to me like farming for me has been the number one thing that's driven my business all of my entire career. I'd have to say that it's a really, really large portion of how I get my business and how I get my listings. You know, the thing is, you got to have listings these days. It's the business, right? 97% of buyers are searching for properties online. And if you don't have any listings on your website, you're probably not going to stay. You know, so my theory has always been get all the listings you can get your hands on. have a very spectacular presentation online with all these beautiful properties and beautiful photos of all these beautiful properties, and people will organically find their way to your site. If you're someone looking for a $10 to $20 million home in Maui and I got 3 of the 4 listings, you're going to end up on my site and I'm going to get that client. So I get a lot of buyers from buyers shopping online or looking online, stumbling into my site and then calling me and say, hey, I see you got this listing. And so it's an organic process, but it's really fundamentally driven through that farming that I've been doing so religiously for so many years. It's got to be more than 50% of my listings, just because of the recognition and over that many years. It's just people know me, I guess.
Dean, did you say you have 10,000 homes in your farm?
In a farm, yeah. So it's condos, it's homes, it's regional. So I'm not specifically targeting communities. I'm targeting a couple of resort, which is made up of about 9 communities. But they're all super high end. But that's my market. It's my.
And is that direct mail that you're utilizing with them?
Yeah, a lot of direct mail, and I try to mix it up with different things every time. And I do a lot of e-blasts as well, e-blasting and direct mails.
And did you start, how many did you start out with? Because I'm sure you didn't start out with 10,000.
Not as many. What I did was I started out with probably less than half of that, which was the region that I had, when I first joined in real estate out of college, I worked for a large developer, Kapalua Land Company, and they developed the Kapalua Resort. It was the most high-end community in the island at that time, and we were limited from selling anything but Kapalua. So I really didn't know anything else. I've never done first-time home buyers. I've never really had much interaction. I'm terrible at it. But I've only knew high-end from my beginning and just been thrown into the deep end, and that's all I could do. I wasn't able to sell outside. So I started with about 3,000 to 4,000, but I've been marketing to that group for the last 25 years.
Great.
And
Anybody
then
else
what I did was, once I became, my theory is, and I tell people every day, is you can't just go in and go, I'm going to be an expert on Southern California real estate. It just doesn't work that way. Or you can't come in and say, I'm going to target Maui as my farm. You really have to hone in and identify a little niche. And once you've hammered that niche and become successful in that niche, you can expand into other markets, but you can't go straight into the whole thing. You got to break it down to a small piece, be very successful at that before you can expand. And Kapalua was my start. And then once I had some success in that market, I expanded into Kaanapali, and once I got some traction there, I expanded into the next market, and that's how I got to 10,000. I started with 3,000 probably.
That's great. Anybody else have a question for Dean?
I have a question for you, Dean. What percentage of your business is referrals? Because you say you're going to all the conferences, but you haven't been with the company that long. And so I'm just really curious to know. And also, is there one state or one country that you see most of your referrals coming from? Good
question. Referrals is a big part of my business, especially in the last 5 years or so, and especially since I joined Keller Williams. I've had a really tremendous run with Keller Williams, in my opinion, and just building a business for the future with just some amazing people, and that network is real. As you and I know, Christina, we've referred back and forth some unbelievable clients. And it's just been a great thing for me, because I was stranded and isolated before, and I wasn't really getting that many referrals. Referrals now, I would say, probably is 50% of my business. And not just referrals from agents, but referrals from other clients too, which is where I got most of my referrals from before. I really work those relationships, and most of my clients become my best friends, and we go to happy hour together and hang out, and really fun people. But where I've really picked up is in the Keller Williams network, and meeting just some amazing people, all very like-minded, very ambitious, and have these amazing networks and connections that I've formed in 3 years that are really lucky. It's an amazing group of people. The people are so nice. It's almost that weird. I got an email from Amber Hart the other day. I don't know if she's on this call, but she's amazing and #1 individual agent in Austin. She emailed me the other day to ask if she could do a testimonial for me. I was like, what? Why? What are you doing? What do you need? What do you want? But there's so many people out there that are just so interested in helping us and making us all better. That's been a game changer, a major game changer for me. And I've really gone from maybe 25% referrals to I think now over 50%. And I'm really working, for me, that's probably other than personalizing and upgrading my service level, creating these networks is my number one priority right now. That's going to be the future of real estate. I think there's all these networks and companies that are all banding together and joining together. And I think we have this great opportunity with such an amazing reach. And I'm really looking beyond just the US. I'm really interested in international markets and how we can tap in and network with them as well, which I know Lee and Christina, you both are looking for that too. I really believe the network is the future of real estate.
Absolutely. And one thing that everybody should know is that this doesn't just come from Dean going to conferences and passing his business card around. He really works this on a one-to-one personal level. And for those of you that are interested in tapping into that, that's what it takes. It takes getting on the phone and talking to people around the country and forming those alliances. Anybody else have a question for Dean?
I do. This is Philomena.
Hi, Philomena.
Hi. So I have a question about lead generating sites. Have you ever used them, and what are your thoughts on them?
On lead generation, you know, before coronavirus, I went to
websites.
Website again.
Yeah, lead generating website.
Websites.
Website lead generation.
Mm-hmm.
I actually delved into this pretty heavily before coronavirus, and I've kind of backed off it now, but I was looking for ways to grow my business. I mean, my ultimate goal is to be a $100 million producer, and I'm trying to figure out how do I get there. You know, I know how to get to where I'm at now, but then I was looking for how do I get to this next level, having never been there before. And I looked to this online lead generation. I had a website built that was specific for Google ads and Facebook, and I delved big into it and was spending about $5,000 a month on lead generation to this site, and had a company that was working with me and stuff. And now I think it was successful. I generated a lot of leads. They're pretty raw leads though, and for me, in my business of being a much more high-end client, it didn't work as well for me. I didn't really generate, I wasn't able to target my online marketing to luxury clients. So, but what I did is I generated a lot of leads. I mean, I was generating 300 leads a month, and I could have easily gone up much more if I'd spent more money. But I wasn't converting a lot of those leads, and I think it's partly me. I was handing them off to other agents to take care of as well. But I think if I was a newer agent building a business, I would look to lead generation as a way to build a pipeline and a database of prospects. I think that's the benefit of this online lead generation, is to build a massive database. It may be fairly raw, but over time, you're going to execute. It's going to be a great pipeline for you. For someone that's late in their career like me, it didn't work as well because it wasn't as targeted as I'd like to be. I've backed off on those online marketing and that website because I'm trying to be more specific and targeted and really more fundamental in my business on my people that I've already touched in the past, and really focus on those rather than trying to generate new leads. But I did it. I tried it. I liked it. It was exciting. There was a lot going on. I was getting calls and texts every day from people inquiring, and a lot of them were just curious. But I think it's if you're interested in building a great business for the future and a huge big database, which in real estate today is probably the number one priority, is your database. That would be a great way to do it if you don't have one already, for sure.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you, Philomena. Dean, thank you so much again. Getting up, I know you're up anyway, but still a 7 a.m. Zoom call is probably not top of your hit parade.
To hang out with you guys anytime.
Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for joining us. If Dean, what's the easiest way for people to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I have an easy email address to remember. If you want to email me, it's my name, Dean Otto @maui.net. And you can shoot, I mean, otherwise, easy to read.
That's easy enough.
Dean Otto @maui.net. Yeah, give me a buzz. I'd love to help or, work with any of you guys that are looking to spread your wings a little bit. If anyone's coming to Maui, please don't hesitate to look me up.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back to Europe next week.
Hey, Lee, time for a mountain road trip.
Yeah, Steve. What was that?
What was that, Steve?
A road trip.
Time for a Maui road trip.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I say we have a mastermind in Maui, and you're all invited in June.
I'll get him on the plane.
There you go. Lee, you need to get over here too. That's ridiculous.
I know.
I'll have a bike here ready for you, and you can ride around the island a few times and enjoy it.
I'm in. You've got a 10,000 foot mountain there waiting for me to climb.
Oh yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, I'll pick you up at the top of my car.
Excellent.
All right, guys. Thanks for everything, Lee. I really appreciate you and you guys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Dean.
Thank you, Dean.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.